Schwarzenegger walks into the room. I'm back. Watch out, Denmark. Mother, come here. I love you. Big kiss for you. Sorry, you're dead. Look over here. I'm going to do another speech, but first, I'm going to tear through a wall and flex my nipples. Don't be afraid of me. Don't be afraid.
Robin Williams was not like other comedians. Most performers are happy when they get a small laugh or a polite chuckle from the audience. Williams was never satisfied with that. He wanted more. He pushed harder, went further, and kept going until people could barely breathe from laughing. Whether he was sitting in a television interview, hosting an awards show, or performing live on stage, Robin Williams had a way of turning any ordinary moment into something completely unforgettable. This video takes a close look at some of the most remarkable moments from his career, showing exactly why so many people consider him the greatest comedian who ever lived. If you enjoy content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We cover the funniest, most legendary moments in comedy history, and you do not want to miss what is coming next. Where it all began. People often wonder where Robin Williams got his sense of humor from. How does someone become that funny? How does a person develop the ability to say anything at any moment without hesitation or fear? The answer, it turns out, starts at home. In one interview, Williams gave people a rare glimpse into his childhood by talking about his mother. He described her as genuinely funny, not just in a polite way, but in a sharp, unexpected way that made people lose control. She had a particular trick she used to do with a rubber band that he tried to describe on camera, but it was the kind of thing that did not fully translate into words. What mattered was the energy behind it. His mother laughed freely, spoke without holding back, and found humor in small, ordinary things. That attitude was passed directly to her son. Robin Williams grew up in a house where comedy was not something you performed for an audience. It was just how you talked, how you looked at the world, and how you got through the day. The apocalypse on stage. One of the most memorable things about Robin Williams was his ability to look at a completely normal situation and find something absurd hiding inside it. At one award ceremony, he walked out on stage and immediately started looking around at the other people who had been honored that evening. Instead of saying something polite and expected, he pointed out that the lineup of guests included Prince, William Shatner, Puff Daddy, and Mick Jagger, all sharing the same stage at the same time. He told the audience that this combination of people in one place was, without question, a sign that the world was about to end. He called it the apocalypse. The audience burst into laughter because the observation was so specific and so unexpected. That was Williams at his best. He did not prepare a long setup or build slowly toward a punchline. He looked at what was right in front of him and said the thing that no one else had thought to say yet. Reinventing the classics. Movie quotes have a way of living forever. Certain lines get repeated so many times that they become part of everyday language. Robin Williams had enormous respect for great cinema, but he also had absolutely no problem picking up a legendary line and doing something completely unexpected with it. He once started talking about Al Pacino's famous line from Scarface, the one that people have been repeating since the film came out. Williams acknowledged it as one of the most quoted lines in movie history, said you could hear people using it in bedrooms all over the world, and then paused with a look on his face that told the audience he was about to take it somewhere else entirely. That ability to start in a recognizable place and then suddenly veer off into something new and surprising was one of his greatest gifts. He made the audience feel like they were on solid ground for a moment, and then pulled the rug out from under them. Saying what no one else would. There's a particular kind of courage that comedy requires. Not the dramatic, serious kind of courage, but the social kind. The willingness to say the thing that everyone is thinking, but no one wants to be the first to say out loud. Robin Williams had that quality in enormous amounts. At one event, he looked directly at the host, a man named Bob, and told him that his new hairstyle looked like something Saddam Hussein would wear. He said it plainly, with a completely straight face for just a moment before the whole room collapsed. He did not stop there. He moved immediately to another guest named Marty, told him to take off his glasses, and compared the man's eyebrows to two caterpillars trying to mate. He encouraged the eyebrows to move. He addressed Jodie Foster and thanked her for wearing what he described as two napkins. He went through the room like a hurricane, leaving no one untouched and somehow leaving everyone laughing instead of offended. It was a masterclass in roasting people without making them feel bad about it. Running for food. Williams had a remarkable ability to take a subject that seemed completely settled, something everyone thought they understood, and flip it on its head. When the conversation turned to the dominance of Kenyan runners in long-distance athletics, most people at the time were pointing to biological or physiological explanations. Williams had a different theory. He suggested that the reason Kenyan runners were so fast had nothing to do with biology and everything to do with the fact that they were simply running for food. He did not pause between the setup and the punchline. He just kept going, piling on detail after detail, building the joke layer by layer until the audience was completely gone. The bit about drug testing was a particularly sharp addition. His version of a Kenyan runner responding to accusations of drug use with the explanation that he was simply running because he was hungry cut right to the heart of how absurd the drug testing conversation had become in professional athletics. He managed to make a social point and be hilarious at the same time, which was something he did better than almost anyone. Laughing at himself. One of the things that separated Robin Williams from many other comedians was his complete willingness to make himself the target. He did not just aim his humor outward, he turned it on himself constantly, and he did so without any hint of self-pity or discomfort. He once described comedy as being fundamentally about certain kinds of people and situations, then immediately included himself in that description by pointing to Arnold Schwarzenegger as an example of the kind of accent and presentation that made comedy possible. He talked about his own body hair in remarkable detail, describing a time when two women were hired to wax him for a film role. They worked on him for so long that they eventually had to ask for a break. He recounted one of the women saying she had never seen anything like it in her entire career. His response was to describe a visit to a zoo where the monkeys looked at him with a kind of confused recognition. The ability to take genuine insecurity or embarrassment and turn it into material that makes a room full of strangers laugh is one of the highest forms of comedy, and Williams did it effortlessly. The phone joke. Williams was sharp enough to take something as simple as a complaint about mobile phone reception and find a completely unexpected angle inside it. He described the common frustration of checking your signal bars and worrying about having only two. Then he stopped, shifted his voice slightly, and announced that as an alcoholic, he had always only needed one bar to be satisfied. The joke worked because it came from nowhere, arrived before the audience had time to prepare, and packed a personal confession into what had started as a completely innocent observation about technology. That was his rhythm. Normal thing, sudden left turn into something much more personal and surprising. The Christopher Walken impression. Among all of Robin Williams' many impressions, his Christopher Walken was particularly special. Walken has one of the most imitated voices in Hollywood, a slow, unpredictable rhythm with long pauses that fall in completely unexpected places. Many comedians have tried the impression. Most of them get the basic sound right, but do not know what to do with it once they have it. Williams went further. He built an entire character around it, constructing a scenario in which Walken was asked what single thing he would want most in the world and responding that he would want a tail. Then he explained in that same slow and deliberate Walken voice exactly what the tail would communicate: up when happy, down when sad or scared. The logic was impeccable within its own strange world, and Williams delivered it with such commitment that the audience was fully inside the bit by the time the punchline arrived. He did the impression multiple times across different shows and events, and each time he found something new to do with it, which speaks to how much creative energy he had available at any given moment. Robin and Jack. The friendship between Robin Williams and Jack Nicholson was something that audiences got to witness many times over the years, and it was clearly genuine. The two men had an enormous amount of respect for each other, but they expressed that respect almost entirely through relentless jokes at each other's expense. Williams described a moment backstage at an awards ceremony when Nicholson, having just won his third Academy Award, turned to him and said with total confidence that he now had one for every decade. Williams recalled the remark with pure delight, not as an insult, but as the kind of thing that only a true friend could get away with saying. He returned the favor constantly and publicly. At one event, he delivered what amounted to a full endorsement of Jack Nicholson for political office, arguing that even the French would support him. He listed Nicholson's qualities one by one, noting that a sex scandal would be impossible because Nicholson had already been with everyone, and that his history with recreational substances was so extensive that even Keith Richards had reportedly told him it was time to go home. The audience was completely gone by the end. Williams had a gift for making the people he loved sound funnier than anyone else. Martha Stewart in The Meet. Some of Robin Williams' funniest moments came from placing himself in situations with very specific rules and then breaking every single one of them as quickly as possible. A cooking segment with Martha Stewart was exactly that kind of situation. Stewart was trying to explain how to prepare a rub from meat, and Williams stood beside her, nodding along until she reached the part where she mentioned rubbing it into the meat. He stopped everything. He looked at the camera. He noted that he had personal experience with this particular activity spanning a full decade of his younger life. He suggested to any children watching that they might want to look away for a moment. Stewart tried to maintain the segment's dignity, but Williams had already taken the whole thing somewhere she had never intended it to go, and the audience loved every second of it. The Siri bit. Near the end of his career, Robin Williams was finding new material in the technology that had taken over everyday life. He described a new application on his phone, a kind of moral GPS that would alert you when you were making questionable decisions. His example involved texting someone who turned out to be the same age as your daughter, at which point the GPS would announce that a reroute was necessary. He then moved into a bit about asking Siri for directions to a specific theater in New York and receiving a completely different question in return. He described the way voice recognition software consistently misunderstands what you are actually saying and responds with something that sounds similar but is completely different in meaning, and somehow turned that frustration into one of his sharpest observations about modern life. The bit was compact, precise, and perfectly delivered, which showed that even later in his career he was still working at the highest level. The human behind the legend. Through all of his performances, through all of the impressions and observations and lightning-fast jokes, Robin Williams never lost the quality that made him truly special, which was his humanity. He was not performing from a distance. He was never trying to make himself look smarter or better than the people he was talking to. He made fun of himself as freely as he made fun of anyone else. He laughed at his own jokes as easily as he laughed at other people's. He once described his appearance before a show by comparing himself to a vampire on a day pass. He once riffed on the idea of William Shakespeare wandering around his hometown after a few beers, knocking on doors and trying to claim credit for lines he had just made up. He played the part of Shakespeare with enormous enthusiasm, putting an accent on it and a kind of swagger that made the whole image completely hilarious. When he talked about only using the internet a little, and the host pointed out how unusual that honesty was, Williams immediately turned it into a joke about being slightly pregnant or slightly circumcised. He could not help it. That was who he was. The world handed him a straight line, and he could not let it pass without doing something with it. Robin Williams was not just a comedian. He was a specific and unrepeatable kind of performer who brought something to every room he walked into that disappeared from the world when he left it. Watching these moments now, the thing that stands out most is not just how funny he was, but how alive he seemed, how fully present, how completely willing to follow a joke wherever it wanted to go, no matter how unexpected the destination. That quality is rare in any person and almost impossible to find in a performer at his level. There was only one Robin Williams, and these moments remind us exactly why that is something worth remembering.